the anti-penultimate seminar of the semester. In other words, it's the fourth to the last. And this has been a wonderful series, and it will continue to be. And we are privileged today to have Seth Jacobson, the director of the Center for Civic Engagement and Social Impact, who will talk to us about student basic need at Westchester University. Okay. Oh, basic needs, insecurity.
No worries.
Yeah. Okay,
All
Seth,
right, I'm ready to
take
do
it away. Looking forward to this.
All right. Hello, folks. I'm gonna get this out of the way for you guys on Zoom. All right, so let's get started. As Walt said, I'm Seth Jacobson, the director of the Center for Civic Engagement and Social Impact at Westchester University, which is home to the university's resource pantry, which I will be talking about in just a little bit. So I won't get too into it just yet. So just to get us started, just so I have a sense as to who folks are, and also where folks are when it comes to like a starting point with respect to this topic. I'm just going to ask everyone if you could just introduce yourself, and then maybe just briefly, like what you already know about student basic need insecurity, or resource pantries or food pantries in general. It could be nothing. You could say, I know absolutely nothing about this topic, or you might have some interesting, insight, but just would like to kind of hear kind of where you're coming from. And then, so that'll be our introductions. I'll talk then about what we know about basic need insecurity at Westchester University. And then I'll talk a little bit more about the resource pantry and how the resource pantry at the university is working to combat college student basic need insecurity. And then we'll open it up for any questions or conversation. But so by way of introductions, as I mentioned, so if we could just go around, share your name, your department or major, or any affiliation that you have to Westchester, and what you know about the resource pantry or basic need insecurity or resource pantries in general. We could start, let's start with the folks on Zoom. Maybe if John, if you want to go, and then Amy, and then Terrence.
Sure, I'm happy to go. My name's John Nider. I am a pastor of Romansville United Methodist Church, which is just about 5 miles outside of Westchester on Stroudsburg Road. My affiliation with Westchester University is simply through my kids. I've had 3 kids attend university there. 2 of them have already graduated. The third one is currently enrolled there. One of our ministries here at the church, by the way, is a food ministry. And so hearing you talk about that, I'll be interested to see how we might contribute to whatever efforts you have ongoing in that area.
That's great. Thank you, John. Nice to meet you.
All right, I think it's my turn. I'm Amy Maxey, and I'm the admin assistant in the Office of Sustainability. And from what I've learned about basic needs at Westchester University, I know that there is probably a greater need than any of us realize. I know that this is a very expensive area to live in, and I've heard reports that homelessness among students and food insecurity is a lot higher than people want to believe. I've also heard that for out-of-state students coming into Westchester, if they're coming from more southern states, they might not already have access or, have a winter wardrobe, and that's something that we don't always think about. So I know that the resource pantry has in the past provided, coats and winter wear and things like that, and they've done drives in the past. But that's a very limited understanding of the problem, but that's kind of where I'm
at. That's a pretty comprehensive the issue and the resources. Thank you, Amy. Terrence, would you like to introduce yourself? If you're not able to, that's okay.
Sure. My name is Terrence Cahill, and I work in the IT department. Hi there. I decided to come check this out. I've attended a few of these, and it's always interesting.
All right, cool. Thank you. Welcome. And then you guys can't see the folks in the room, but if you want to,
Whatever.
I could shift
Oh,
it.
yeah.
I could shift it a little bit.
Here, I'll slide over.
There we go.
It's there it is.
It's supposed to be.
Okay. I'm mostly there. Hello, everyone. My name is Sean Donahue Nider, son of John Nider, who's happened to be joining us this Wednesday. Yeah, what I know, I've worked with food banks, food pantries in my previous years. They exist for the right reasons. Sometimes things get a little convoluted in terms of the intent of, okay, well, we have to provide this food because obviously these people can't provide for themselves. So that can get a little muddled. Comparing what you guys are doing on campus to even a local food bank here in Westchester, the requirements to access one of our local food banks, in my opinion, are pretty high. Like you have to have a copy of a utility bill and a driver's license. And it's like if someone's dealing with food insecurity, they're not going to necessarily have those things. So, I think it's important to look at the approach that you're taking, and are you able to actually provide the much needed access, or are you creating barriers that don't necessarily need to be there? And my experience with the food pantry on campus is it's a great program. I've utilized it myself. There's no shame in it. The cost of tuition here would honestly, I'm just going to say it, would cause people to experience that if they were paying out of pocket and or a working student like myself. So it exists for the right reasons, and I appreciate it. I think we need to take the stigma away from it too, which is another big piece. But yeah, I've had a lot of experience over the years with it, and I'm thankful that it's here, and I'm glad to be here.
Thank you.
So I'm Walt Kressler, introducing myself again. Been at Westchester University for a couple of decades as the science librarian and geology professor, but I've been aware of the pantry here and contribute to it now and then, and even more so at the food bank in town where I live in media. But I don't know a lot about just the prevalence of food insecurity. I know it exists, and don't know the dynamics of how it's embedded in the lives of both the contributors so much as well as the recipients of the food. And I look forward to learning more.
Great. Thank you so much. Awesome. All right. Well, I really appreciated hearing all of you and hearing sort of where you're coming from, what you already know, just your different views and perspectives on basic need insecurity, food insecurity, and resource pantries and the work that pantries do. So I will get into that, and fortunately, some of the topics and your interests are things that I think we'll be able to address and talk a little bit about as part of this presentation. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time. I'll get this screen out of the way for you guys in here. So it's going to be a little bit. Here we go. That's perfect, right? So it's a little better. So this isn't typically part of the presentations I give when talking about the resource pantry specifically, but I thought it's salient to highlight in this particular context, given that this is hosted by the Sustainability Office and the Sustainability Council. Obviously, there's a lot of ways in which these topics intersect with the issue of sustainability, but one, I think, important note to recognize and to at least highlight is that interventions like food pantries and resource pantries are green strategies to prevent food waste. And just this interesting statistic from the Global Food Banking Network found that this past year, food banks served over 62.5 million people and prevented approximately 2.6 1.68 million metric tons of safe edible surplus food from being wasted. And so we're certainly proud to be part of that sort of ecosystem of food system of pantries that are doing this kind of work in general. So I did just want to highlight that given this particular context. But getting into what we know about basic need insecurity and food insecurity at Westchester University, a big piece of what we know is based on an assessment that we fielded in 2020. It was I think around September or October of 2020. Obviously, that was during the pandemic, and so our findings around this could be a bit skewed. But we're of course still kind of reeling from the pandemic, and we anticipate fielding this same assessment on a triannual basis. So we'll be doing it again in about a year from now, or a year and a half from now, to continue measuring this at Westchester. But what we fielded was called the #RealCollege survey, and this is the nation's most well-established assessment of student basic needs. It's run out of the Hope Center at Temple University. The Hope Center was founded by a professor named, an activist named Sarah Goldberg Grab, who's done some really incredible, has some great scholarship as well as activism and advocacy work around college student basic needs security. So she developed with her team this assessment, and they've been fielding it across the country. This in 2020, or in general, since they've launched it, since its inception, more than 500 colleges and universities participated in the assessment, over 500,000 students, and both four-year institutions and two-year community colleges. The survey that we fielded, and this survey in particular, examines three measures of basic need insecurity. So it looks at food insecurity on campuses among college students, housing insecurity, and homelessness. Given that the survey was fielded during a pretty extraordinary time, they did include some additional items to measure other things related to mental health and some other constructs that I don't know if I get into too much in this particular presentation. But if you're interested in some of those other areas, I'm happy in general to share the full report with you. In terms of participation in this particular survey, nationally, there were 195,000 students that participated in it from 130 two-year institutions, 72 four-year institutions that responded, giving an 11% response rate. At Westchester, we had about 2,500 students respond to it, 11.3% response rate. Have the breakdown there of the students in terms of that participated based on the programs that they're enrolled in at Westchester. And then just a quick breakdown of some of the characteristics of the Westchester students who participated in the study. Again, I'm sorry that I think Zoom is not, I know on our end in here, I don't think you guys are seeing the gallery view the way we're seeing it, but a quick breakdown of the demographics. The response rate among female students was notably higher than male students. And then some of our high-level findings related to basic need insecurity in those three measures that I mentioned earlier. So in total, given all three measures, 44% of our students were found to be experiencing at least one form of basic need insecurity. 20% of our students experienced food insecurity in the past, the prior 30 days from when they took the survey. 36% of our students experienced housing insecurity in that previous year, and 12% of our students experienced homelessness in that previous year. And you can see how our findings compared with comparable four-year institutions, relatively on par, although it seems like, given the graph that we're looking at, that Westchester was doing slightly better with respect to security when it comes to food, housing, and homelessness. So digging into these things a little bit more deeply, so you have here the 26% of our students couldn't afford to eat balanced meals. 23% of our students worried about running out of food before they had money to buy more. So these are just some of the measures that were used when it came to looking at food insecurity in particular. Again, the 26% and that 23% that I just highlighted were the top top sort of measures of food insecurity that our students were rating high on. The next one after that, the food that I bought just didn't last, and I didn't have the money to buy more. And then another higher one, 18%, I cut the size of my meals or skipped meals because there wasn't enough money or food. And then just some digging a little bit more deeply into the housing security and homelessness pieces. So on the left side of the screen, you have the housing insecurity measures, and you see the highest one, 36%, were any food insecurity item, and then the highest one beyond that was students that did not pay their full amount of rent or their mortgage that year, or they moved 3 or more times. This in particular, I think the housing insecurity and the homelessness piece, I think is plausibly explained in part by what was going on with the pandemic, especially college students that fall, many being displaced from their campus housing and having to figure out what they were going to do in terms of their living situations. Not saying that to mitigate the severity of the issue, but I think it's just important context as well to be aware of. On the right side, you have some of the homelessness measures, 12% again scored on any homelessness item. And the highest one after that was students that were temporarily staying with relatives, friends, or couch surfing until they were able to find other forms of housing. And then, as I mentioned, the survey doesn't typically get into these items as much, but given the context of COVID, it did measure issues pertaining to health and mental health. And so we found that 39% of our students had a close friend or family member that was sick with COVID during the height of the pandemic. 6% were sick themselves. 39% of our students in terms of mental health exhibited at least moderate forms of anxiety. And then employment was measured as well. We found that 39% of our students lost part-time jobs during the pandemic. 24% of our students had their hours or their pay cut or reduced at both their part-time and or full-time jobs. And then we also were able to look at some subpopulations as well. We looked at parenting students, so students that are parenting or caregiving. We found that 80% of our students, that 80% of parenting students had children at home with them at least part-time during that fall. 47% had to help children in home with their schooling. 35% missed at least one day of work or class due to childcare arrangements. And then looking in general at, again, looking at demographics, one thing of note that was found was that, and we know this nationally, was that some of our students are at higher risk of experiencing basic need insecurity than others. And in particular, we knew that we found that students of color, first generation college students, Pell Grant recipients, and LGBTQ students experienced higher rates of food insecurity, basic need insecurity than their counterparts. The survey also looks at utilization of supports that might be available to students when it comes to addressing basic need insecurity and mirroring national trends. We found national trends, especially for four-year institutions. We found that the utilization of supports was generally uncommon by students. We also found in the national data that two-year institutions do a much better job than our four-year institutions in ensuring that students are taking advantage of different forms of support that might be available to them. But as you can see here, only 17% of students experiencing basic need insecurity at Westchester used emergency financial aid. 35% of students had never even heard of emergency financial aid that's available at the university, not surprisingly. Only 8% of our students experiencing basic need insecurity at Westchester received help obtaining SNAP, which is also known as food stamps program. 29% of students had never even heard of it. And as I said, two-year institutions tend to outpace our four-year institutions, including us, when it comes to making sure that students are aware of these supports and are taking advantage of the supports. The survey dived a little bit more deeply into trying to understand reasons why students were not taking advantage of or might not be taking advantage of some of these supports that might be available. Notably, 78% didn't think they were eligible for these different forms of supports and services, when in fact they most likely were. 48% of students experiencing basic need insecurity didn't apply for campus supports because they didn't know how to do it. And 45% of students experiencing basic need insecurity didn't know that different forms of campus support even existed. So there's clearly an awareness issue and just even an issue when it comes to making sure students, are not only aware of these programs, but that they are able to know that they may be eligible and that they're able to navigate the process for accessing these different forms of support as well. Right now I'm gonna be pivoting into talking about what we're doing at Westchester and what the resource pantry is doing to combat what I just shared with you. But before I move into what we're doing, I just want to pause to see if you have any questions related to any of the data that I just shared.
Just a quick question.
Yeah.
This is all really fascinating. I would be curious to know, after doing this survey, are you planning on, or is there in the works to do a follow-up survey to see, is there an increase in access now that, maybe you've raised the awareness, so maybe you might see more utilization of,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
If you measure that, or if you are interested in obtaining
I'm
data.
yeah. So I'm definitely interested in it. The Hope Center, like I said, we're committed and we have the funding committed to doing this survey on a triennial basis. So we will be doing this again. I think they are probably going to make some slight modifications, but they'll measure the same items. And one thing that I will say I was a little bit disappointed by with this survey. It's a great survey, but it didn't get as granular as I would like to have gotten when it came to different campus supports, like the resource pantry specifically. It was a little bit more, it was sort of broad. And so I say that in part because, what I'm going to share with you in just a second, what we do with the resource pantry. But, one thing that I'm constantly trying to advocate, and when I go into meetings with colleagues across the university, is that this issue is an like all hands on deck issue, and it's the resource pantry alone is not going to solve the issue and is not going to address all of these challenges. We certainly play a role and a leading role at that, but we really need everyone to play a part, and we need sort of a cohesive strategy for doing it across the university. And so it's something that I'm trying to push a little bit more for. There's a lot of folks on campus that are committed to this. I'm not sure we have a cohesive university-wide strategy quite yet for addressing this. And so if we were to measure this again, and if we were to see improvements when it comes to awareness of campus services, I would certainly take a little bit of pride with my team that we may have done something, and I'll share again what we're doing. But I also wouldn't be surprised if the needle doesn't move too much if we're not able to get sort of a comprehensive and cohesive university-wide strategy for addressing these numbers. And again, and some of this even goes outside of just Westchester, right? I mean, there's some, I know, Sean, you and I have talked about just policy, public policy issues that are bearing down on these kinds of topics that we have to tap into and sort of engage in order to move the needle. But all that said, we're definitely going to do it again, and we're hoping to see improvements when it comes to some of these challenges, these enduring challenges.
Oh, okay.
You look like you were going to ask a question.
Well, I do have something on mind.
Okay.
It looked like it was interesting that the data showed that the two-year institutions seem to maybe have some supports in place to connect students with other supports, and maybe a kind of model, and that plays into my wondering about different types of institutions of higher education, and whether the survey, it was interesting to see how many had participated in the survey, and whether the results were different for different types of institutions beyond this 2-year, 4-year, because
like public, private.
well, public, private, or institutions that have as their mission, yeah, exactly, a mission to have accessible education like we do. So we might have a demographic that would more people in some institutions.
Sure.
Coming from lower income.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then it behooves us to respond
Right.
with more supports.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And we, you know, I one thing that I've been trying to be more conscious of is also just becoming more familiar with what just other institutions are doing, and especially those that are outpacing us. I don't want to use it as like a race, but are doing a better job when it comes to supporting their students or making their students more aware of services and getting those students, making them accessible. And the 2 years, you know, they do a good job, I think, in part because it is part of the mission. You know, it tends to attract a demographic that may disproportionately experience some of these basic needs insecurities higher than maybe your private institutions. And but they also, you know, given that, you know, whether, not sure what came first, the chicken or the egg, but given the population and given their, you know, their mission, they do tend to have some strong support services in place to make sure students are aware of these different benefits and opportunities. So it is something that we're trying to take a closer look at, sort of what their model looks like, and what they do well. The Hope Center does a good job with really elevating and highlighting best practices, and they tend to feature community colleges because they're doing a much better job. And so I think one of the challenges in general is that basic need insecurity and food insecurity, I think it's the conversation, I think, made its way and became more prevalent and engageable and engaged at two-year institutions first when it came to higher ed, and it's more slowly getting into the four-year space because there's that perception that if you're going to a four-year college, you probably don't have basic need insecurity. It's not that big of a deal. Everyone eats ramen. It's all the stereotypes and all the sort of the assumptions that are being made, and so I think we're just finally we're finally catching up in the four-year space of recognizing that this is a serious issue on our four-year campuses across the country. And so participating in this kind of national assessment, I think is something that we're happy to be part of as well, because this data, the national data, is being used to make some advancements when it comes to public policy at the national and state level. I'm going to jump into—
Seth?
Yes, John.
Question for you.
Yep.
On one of the previous screens, you noted that students self-reported struggles with both depression and/or anxiety. Do you have a—
John, it looks like you're muted.
Oh, sorry. Do you have a way to tease out the relationship between self-reporting depression and anxiety with those who did not find or seek out help?
Huh. Yeah, you know, I don't know, John. I don't know if we have that ability. One of the challenges with this assessment as well is they were not able to provide us with our institution specific disaggregated granular data. And so instead, institutions that participate in this, we just get an institutional report that aggregates everything in the way that we're looking at it. And so myself and a couple of faculty members at the university did have some more pointed questions, including, like, not that question in particular, John, but similar questions. And so we tried to request the file on Westchester specific so we could see if we could tease out some of these things and to address some of the questions we have, like questions such as that one. And we were only successful in getting the data file for every single institution in the country, and so we just couldn't work with that. So it's something that I'm hoping, as we negotiate with the Hope Center again for our next iteration, that's something that we might be able to get access to and be able to, so that we can pry a little bit more deeply to see some of these kinds of relationships.
Yeah, I would think, Seth, that people that struggle with depression or anxiety, if you look at that other screen you had about people who didn't participate, that struggle may actually feed into their inability to go and seek help.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. All right. So I'm gonna just, in the interest of time, I'm gonna pivot to just talking a bit about the resource pantry and what we're doing through the pantry to address the basic need insecurity that we're seeing on campus. So first, the pantry, you see the mission up there, supports success by minimizing food and basic need insecurity. I guess I think it's important to also share that the resource pantry is housed within the Center for Civic Engagement and Social Impact, of which I'm the director. And it's interesting, when I was applying for this job to be the director of the center, during the interview, someone asked me, what do you think about the location of the resource pantry? And I was like, oh, it's a little bit like out of the way on campus. Not everyone knows exactly where it is. It's a little kind of in the periphery. And they were like, no, that's not what we mean. We mean like location as an entity within the Center for Civic Engagement and Social Impact. And I thought it was a really good, but both are really good questions actually. But the question about it being located within the Center for Civic Engagement and Social Impact, I really appreciate that it's part of our center for a number of reasons. One is because as our center in general, our other programs and our other offerings, we are a center that works to empower students to be active citizens in their local, national, and global communities. And we do that by empowering them and helping them to get involved, whether that's through volunteer work to address issues that they are concerned about, whether it's through philanthropy and fundraising, through advocacy and activism. We're really trying to make sure students, take seriously, the responsibility of being an active citizen and living within a democratic society. And so, or aspiring democracy. And so we are, we're very intentional about making sure students are being able to think critically about issues they care about, and then making sure they're plugged into opportunities to actually take action to address those issues. And so, one issue that our students are concerned about, and we're all concerned about as an issue of public concern, is food insecurity and basic need insecurity. And so in some cases, we have students in our office that we place with nonprofit partners throughout the region, and they are able to earn some funding through federal work study and other forms of funding. And they get experience working in the community with nonprofits addressing an issue that they care about. And then on campus, for students that, for whatever reason aren't able to get off campus to learn more about this issue and to address the issue, we have the resource pantry. And so really the pantry is in many ways student run. My staff and myself, we play a big role. We have a big hand in keeping things operational, but we have a whole cadre of students who are they're ramp corps members, and they work in the pantry. They are not only working in the pantry to keep it accessible and operational and keeping the shelves stocked, but they're also working on social media. They're working on nutrition programs. They're working on donor relations and fundraising. So they're all, it's students that are doing this, and it's great that students are getting this experience, really deepening their understanding about these issues and taking action on campus and being a leader on campus. So I'm thrilled to be part of the effort and to be able to have this space and to work with students. Also, our center works very closely with community partners in general, and so our pantry is not possible without community partner engagement. And so we rely very heavily on the Chester County Food Bank for our supplies. We get a lot of donations from community members. The Chester County Food Cupboard is a partner of ours. Lots of partners. I'll talk more about that in a second. But in terms of what we offer, so the pantry is open to all students, no questions asked, undergrad and grad students. So the point that you raised earlier, Sean, we try to limit all possible barriers to being able to take advantage of the pantry. So there's no means testing, there's no looking at people's qualifications or anything like that. If you're coming to the pantry and you need it, or you're saying you need it, you probably need it. And so you're let in. The one question we ask is, we just need your student ID number. And this is because we are pretty diligent about data tracking. both for the purposes of being able to report to the university, there's need, and here's what the need looks like, but also for the purposes of inventory procurement and maintenance. And so we have a system called PantrySoft that when students log in, they have a profile, and we're able to track all the inventory that's going out of the pantry, so we know what the need is, so that we're being diligent about keeping our shelves stocked with what the highest demands are at any given time. No appointments are necessary. Walk-ins are welcome. We just this past year implemented an online ordering system through that software I was talking about, which is wonderful and is really being taken advantage of a lot more now. I'm excited. We're slowly raising awareness about that. That's something that it's another accessibility issue. So the pantry, unfortunately, is physically only open for coming in between 9 and 5. But we know that students are working jobs themselves, and 2 jobs and 3 jobs. And so students are able to place online orders, and they can either pick them up at their convenience during those hours, or we have a location that will drop off a package in one of the res halls. And you don't have to be a resident to access these particular halls to pick up your package. So that's being taken advantage of more. It's also a stigma issue for students that are not comfortable being in the physical pantry. They're able to take advantage of the online ordering system. There's no limits or on frequency and duration of visits. What we offer, primarily non-perishable food items. A lot of those food items come from the Chester County Food Bank. Fresh produce from the Westchester University campus gardens. We're also getting more and more donations from the nutrition department, which has been really wonderful. They're teaching students how to make different healthy, fresh meals. And after they prepare them all, they've been bringing them over, and our students love that. So we have a couple of refrigerators in there, and it's always nice when we have it stocked with produce and fresh food. Non-perishable food's great, but we also want to make sure we're addressing, issues related to nutrition and dietary restrictions and just general health. We also have personal care items, a lot of personal care items. So things like shampoo, deodorant, razors, soap, all that stuff, paper towels, toilet paper. We have a school supply section as well. As Amy mentioned earlier, we still do have a career clothing. We have a career clothing closet. It used to be physically in the resource pantry, but this past summer, we actually moved it over to the career center. And we did that strategically. So it's still a operation of the pantry. It's sort of a satellite location of the pantry, if you will. We still manage it, our students still manage it, but it's located in the career closet or in the career center, because we realize that we want to get these things where students are most likely in need of it and where they're most likely going to take advantage of it. And so what was happening was students in the career center were mentioning, I might need something, and then they'd have to walk across to find the pantry. And so now it's over there. And what's nice about that, another stigma sort of issue that we're trying to combat, is anytime a student goes into the career center for a career counseling session, the career counselor will always, as a default, no matter who you are, say, on your way out, I just want to walk you over to the career closet, just let you know that this is here. And if you want to take anything while you're here, feel free. And so it's sort of, everyone knows about it when they're thinking about items they might need for careers. We still keep a rack at our pantry for coats and some winter stuff as well. But the career closet and the career clothing is physically in another spot, which made way for a new exciting development, which I'll talk about in just one second, which is one of our special projects. Oh, I wanted to put pictures of some of these things. I forgot. Sorry about that. So a couple of special projects that we're working on. Again, a lot of what we saw and a lot of what we know from research and the data is students that don't tend to take advantage of these resources due to stigma. And so we're really trying to be intentional about cutting down on that, or trying to be proactive addressing that. And so a couple of things that we've done in addition to what I've already mentioned, like the online ordering system, is we got a gift from a corporation to retrofit our reception area. When you first walk into the resource pantry, it's where you check in and it's where you check out. It was not a very efficient area. It's a very nice area. There's a mural in there. It's very pretty. But what was happening is students would come in, they would give their ID, go through the pantry, and then when they came out, they would have to literally hold their bag of food and personal care items, and take each thing out to tell the student worker everything they had. It's very awkward, and it's also very awkward to tell someone the things that you need and what you're taking, right? So we are in our final, it's just about done, actually. We've retrofitted that area. It's now going to be a self-sufficient self-checkout area. And so with that funding that we got, it's now, we have laptops and sort of self-checkout stands, and we're right now we're making everything so that all the barcodes or the UPC codes are all scannable. So there will be scanners, and students will be able to check themselves out at a laptop at that area instead of having to do all that stuff. There'll still be an ambassador on site in there in case they need help or if they don't want to do self-checkout, but we're moving to that, which is really, really nice. So we're excited about that. We're grateful for the gift that we received for that from Essential Utilities. We're also just implemented this year a food delivery service, and this is a partnership between the Chester County, the Westchester Food Cupboard, and the Westminster Church. I forget, it might be, John, you might know Westminster Presbyterian Church. I'm blanking on what exact church it is, but it's Westminster.
I think it's Westminster, Seth.
Oh, yes. So what we're doing with them, we're super stoked about, and it's starting to work out, and we want to start expanding. So the Westchester Food Cupboard, there can be a number of barriers to taking advantage of their services. They provide some great service though, and they can hook you up with a month's worth of food and lots of food and good food and like perishable, non-perishable, all of that stuff. And many of our students qualify and could take advantage of that, but even accessibility and getting up there can be an issue. And so we have volunteers from Westminster Church that are now, right now we're only doing it once a month, but students are able to sign up in advance and are able to put an order in from the Westchester Food Cupboard. And then we have Westminster volunteers that will go up to the food cupboard, and they will collect all the students who put orders in, all their food, all their bags, and they will come and they will drop it off on campus for the students. And the students then have a month's worth of a more variety of supplies. So that's working out. We're really excited about that, and we're hoping to vamp that up a bit. I mentioned after hours package pickup already. One of our new exciting initiatives in place of the career closet location is this year we've been retrofitting that area to become what we're calling a benefits hub. And this we're working with the social work program on campus to realize this. But basically, again, going back to programs like SNAP and federal aid and different forms of state and federal aid, we want to have in this space community partners who are able to do this, whether they're trained on it or they're happy to volunteer to do this, or our MSW students on site in the benefits hub, so that when students are coming through the pantry, getting food or anything else, they'll know that there's someone in the benefits hub that day, and we'll have signs that say, stop in the benefits hub if you're interested in checking to see if you're eligible for SNAP, and they'll sit down with you with the computer next to you, and they'll walk you through the process. Whether that's for SNAP, volunteer tax income assistance. We know that around tax season, some of our students struggle with that, and there are volunteers out in the community that are trained to do that. We want to find a way to get that stuff into our benefits hub in that space so that students in a one-stop kind of shop can know if they're there, they probably need it anyway. And so we wanted them to know that there's someone in there that's happy to sit down with you, next to you, and walk you through the process. So that's coming to fruition. We're really excited about that. Implementing this year a refrigerator rental program. We found out that there are a lot of students on campus, especially in our Promise program, that don't end up taking home from the pantry or from other sources like perishable and healthy foods, or even food from our campus garden, because they don't have a refrigerator or a mini refrigerator like their peers might have. And so what we're doing moving into next year is working with Res Life to collect refrigerators that students are no longer using, and having a special sort of rental program for students that come into the pantry next year. We'll have advertisements for, do you need a refrigerator if you're coming to the pantry? If so, you can rent one for free, but we're just sort of tracking you so that at the end of the year, we'll find out, do you still need it? Can you give it back so we can reproduce it or recycle it for students moving forward? Excited about that. We're opening up a Philly location on the Philly campus. That's exciting. So we're working with some of our Philly community partners like Phil Abundance on making sure we have supplies there. And we're doing policy advocacy. Last week, myself, Ashley Delshad, faculty member, and some others, we brought a bunch of students up to Harrisburg to advocate for the Hunger-Free Campus bill, which would provide funding to public universities and community colleges in Pennsylvania to support us in this work so we can grow and support it and expand our capacity. We have the First Lady and some other legislators coming to campus in a couple of weeks as well to continue to raise awareness around the issue and to elevate the importance of getting it passed. The bill is actually, we got it into the governor's budget, and so it's more likely to pass than it was likely to pass in its bill form. And so we're really excited about the advocacy we've been doing with our students and our colleagues across campus and our community partners. So that's a really exciting project we've got going on. Last slide. Just a couple of enduring challenges, improving student awareness, something that we're constantly working on. And we're always looking for donations, whether that's time, talent, goods, money, because we are completely reliant on donations. Our staff, my staff in the center, like I said, we all play a role in helping to keep the pantry operational outside of the other work we do. But otherwise, we use some of our donated funds to be able to support graduate assistants to help us manage things. And then we have a whole cadre of students who work in the pantry, as I mentioned earlier. But for the most part, we're only able to support them if they're qualified for federal work study. And so it kind of leaves out students that don't qualify who want to be involved in sort of working with and at the pantry. So always, looking for different forms of donations. Again, we're completely reliant when it comes to food and personal care items as well, when it comes to donations. And again, community partners. And as we look at the benefits hub and looking for volunteers who are able and who have the wherewithal and know how to navigate some of these aid programs like SNAP or volunteer tax income assistance or any of those things, if we can find folks who are willing to spend some hours volunteering in the benefits hub to be a resource for students and sit down next to them and walk them through and help them through the process, that's something that we are grateful for. And on that note, in the interest of fundraising, we have an event coming up. I have it on the screen. If anyone's interested, we're hosting a hunger banquet as a fundraiser on Tuesday, April 26th at 7. You can scan that QR code if you want to learn more about it or get a ticket for it. It's $25 for the general public, $10 for faculty, staff, $5 for students. All proceeds will go to the resource pantry and supporting all the work that we do with the resource pantry. So that's a little plug. All right, 10 minutes for questions or 5 minutes for questions. That's everything.
Thank you, Seth. You landed right on the mark that where Brad likes to pause and say it's 10 minutes of. And for those of you who have a class to go to, this is the time for you to go. But if Seth, sounds like you are willing to stay for further questions. And let's hear if anybody has it.
I'm just going to stop sharing my screen.
Okay.
All right. Any?
I've got a question, Seth. It didn't seem like it was included in the survey that was distributed for student basic needs, but do you have any idea, do you have a sense that students are also in need for clothing that's not career wear? I mean, is that something that's also, I know that the resource pantry doesn't really have the space, for, just like casual wear, just everyday clothing. But do you feel like that's like an important need that the students are facing right now as well?
Yeah, that's a great question. Actually, Amy, really fast though, I think I'm having a little tech issue. I'm assuming you can't see my video right now.
I can't. No,
Okay.
You've got a blank screen.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know why that is, but I'm not, since we don't have a whole lot of time left, I'll throw my picture up there.
Yeah.
Okay, but this was like, yeah, like it felt a little more, probably like 3 or 4 years ago, a little more vibrant and healthy. Anyway, so that's a great question, Amy. Honestly, in terms of whether that's a significant need, I'm not sure. It's not something that we're necessarily seeing, and I don't think clothing in particular is something that the Hope Center survey was really capturing. I can take a closer look at it, but it's not something that comes up a whole lot when in our interactions with students as they come through the pantry. Even when they go up to our racks with coats and gloves, they haven't really asked about other forms of clothing outside of career clothing and winter clothing. Part of the issue, Amy, though, is ultimately our space capacity. So we have very little space for being able to even store some of these donations that come in, especially clothing. That's something that when folks find out that they can donate clothes to the pantry, that's the biggest thing they donate. I think it just is one of those things where students tend to or not students, but community members are often unloading clothes and they're like, where can I donate this? And then they'll bring in huge bags and huge boxes of clothes to a point where we don't like even our staff capacity to spend a lot of time sorting through it, making sure it's clean, getting it clean if necessary. So we do that with career. So we're a little more selective with clothing. So with career clothing, we'll do that. For coats, we'll do that. But with like any clothing, like any shirts or jeans or those kinds of things, it just becomes a little bit more untenable for us in terms of storage and even staffing wise. But with the benefits hub, one of the things that our MSW student has been doing this year is putting together a list of some of our local close by community partners that have different resources like that we don't carry out the pantry, and then making sure they can easily get plugged in to them. So there are a number of community partners in the area that we can plug them into for those kinds of needs.
Awesome, thanks.
Seth?
Yes.
This is John. Would the slides be available if I wanted to use them to present to my congregation for opportunities?
Absolutely, 100%. I don't know if maybe I can share, if I share the slides with, well, I have a feeling, Sean, you might be able to get them to.
Oh, certainly, but also I know that the presentation was recorded,
Okay.
and then I know Amy will at some point upload that. There's a whole
She sends it to me.
archive of all
Okay.
of the presentations, so
Yeah, okay.
it will be available.
Yeah, well then I will make
Thanks.
sure, I'll make sure, and I'll also make sure that the slide deck itself is sent over. I don't know if Amy, if I send it to you or Brad, just the slide deck as well, just as an accompaniment.
Yeah, if you could just send them to me,
Please do.
Seth, that would be awesome. And then I'll get that sent over to Walt with the link to the recording that he can then load up on the digital commons. And we'll have a link on our homepage too, next to the title of your talk, where people can just click and it will take them to the page with the PDF of the slides and the recording.
Sounds great.
So I have a question about the WCU campus gardens. Just generally speaking, the logistics, the seasonality, the staff involved, just try to get a picture of the relationship.
Yeah, so I've actually only visited the South Campus Garden once, but I don't. They're just sort of like one of those like angel benefactors that just, well, it's more structured. So we have a formal relationship. Basically, what happens in season when they have enough yield, we have a relationship where they will. It used to be like every Monday they would stop by, but it would be a select day during the week. They'll stop by the pantry with everything, and they'll work with one of our student leaders to wash everything and put it in our pantry soft system, because it's also something you can order online. But yeah, so it's a pretty seamless relationship. We in season, they'll come by once or twice a week for those purposes. And then at the end of the week, we'll usually look through to see if things are spoiling, and if it is, our students will go to, I think there's a composting spot on campus that our students will take the necessary food over for composting. But it's just a relationship between, I think for the most part in terms of staffing, I'm not of the gardens. I think the North and South Gardens a little bit different. I know Ashley Delshad has been like the mastermind behind the South Campus one. I think the North Campus is a little bit different, but my understanding is that some of this is all going to fall a little bit more under the nutrition program moving forward. I think they're going to take a more hands-on role with some of the work, and we'll obviously maintain a relationship to make sure that the pantry still continues to benefit.
What's the percentage of the fresh produce that comes to the pantry?
I have no idea. From the garden, yeah, I don't know.
You've got other sources, I think.
Honestly, that's our primary source, which is unfortunate. Sometimes,
So almost 100%.
yeah, I mean, well, unfortunate for us only in the sense that we would love to have more produce. We would love to have more, fruits and vegetables, fresh food for students, and we have refrigeration space for it, especially, but off season is especially hard, right? And so that's the only unfortunate part, which is that we don't have multiple sources, but the gardens are just a tremendous lifeline for us.
I'm gonna run the class, but by all means, carry on. Thank you so much, Seth. Really, really wonderful, great information. I just wanted to toss out there for the appreciation dinner. If you need a DJ or something.
Over the hunger banquet?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Play some jazz or something mellow during that. I mean, just I can email you. We can
Yeah,
sort that.
yeah,
But,
yeah,
I
that'd be
thought I'd
great.
offer that.
Yeah, for sure.
It might help inspire people to donate more.
Yeah. Well, and also if any of you can come, please do. Or if you can promote it to friends, family, John, if you're able to or willing to share with members of your congregation, we would love to see folks. Again, it's the hunger banquet's open to our community partners, our faculty, staff, students. We're hoping to have a good student turnout as well. So would certainly welcome seeing all of you. All right, well, with that, I think we are at about 1 o'clock. I know I have to run for a meeting. Well, thank you guys. I'm sorry you couldn't see me, or I couldn't engage with you as much on Zoom for this last 10 minutes or so, but it was a pleasure chatting with you and being with you today.
Thanks, Seth.
Thanks for
This
the
was great.
presentation.
Thanks, Amy.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks a lot.
Nice to meet you, John.
See you, folks.
Have a good afternoon.
Thanks for your tech support, John.